Hi everyone, it's Adam here from Ads Productions, and this is the review of the SteelSeries Apex 7 Blue Switch RGB mechanical gaming keyboard. Starting off with the design. This keyboard features aircraft grade aluminium. The common theme with SteelSeries is that their gaming keyboards and devices as a whole are very well made, with little to no flaws for each of them. And this keyboard, I can safely say, definitely continues on that trend. When you take it out of the box, you realise what a premium keyboard this is. It's basically the presentation that gives you the first impression on how good this keyboard is going to be. It's neatly tucked away in a very compact box. You open it up and it's ready to go. You literally take out a cardboard sleeve, you take out the cable, making sure not to drag it on the corner, and it's ready to plug and play. However, this keyboard is not meant to be plugged and played. It's supposed to be customized, tweaked, macro set up in your own specific gaming desk in the way that you have your setup, as you'll see later on with the SteelSeries Engine. The SteelSeries Engine is going to work with this keyboard to produce some pretty damn cool results. So you'll take the keyboard out of the box and you'll notice something strange with the USB cable. You'll see that there's two USB connections at the end of it. One of them is for pass-through, which basically means you plug one end into your PC, either at the back or the front, and then the little input on the back of the keyboard can be used for USB storage or just a USB key to house some files on. It's just a way of easily accessing removable storage quickly on the back of the keyboard. A nice little touch, but just bear that in mind if you just want a nice and neat keyboard cable, because this one splits at the end to provide one being passed through and one being the keyboard's USB. This is one of those features that you kind of forget about and you realise actually that's a pretty cool feature and I didn't even know it was on that keyboard, because when you look at the keyboard front on, you don't see this input. It's tucked away around the back, meaning that if you don't want to use it, it's not going to ruin the aesthetic of the keyboard. This is a very simple but very cool addition from SteelSeries. There is a wrist rest that comes with this keyboard. This is lightweight, feels very sturdy, and connects with two fairly powerful magnets, one on each side, to basically mean you can just hold the wrist rest in front of the keyboard and it will lock into place. And also, if you don't like playing with the wrist rest, you can literally pick it up, remove it without any issue. You can literally just pick up the wrist rest, it doesn't leave any residue or marks. One of the negatives I did find with the wrist rest is that it does attract fingerprints, I'm not going to lie. But obviously if you have a basic standard of hygiene and you're not going to spill drinks all over it all the time, because accidents do happen, sure. As long as you just use a cloth, wipe it every once in a while, just keep it clean, the fingerprints will be there but it won't get unhygienic. Just bear that in mind that you're going to probably see a lot of fingerprints on this wrist rest, but it's not going to affect the gameplay or just the feel of the keyboard. On the bottom of the keyboard there are some rubber feet to stop the keyboard moving on your desk. As I said in my other review of the Apex 3, which is quite a similar design, but obviously a totally different keyboard, but we won't go into the difference. The keyboard and the rubber feet are fairly standard across the SteelSeries line. If you're going to move it around your desk, expect a bit of noise here and there, but that's just rubber contact onto whatever surface you have on it. The feet of this keyboard are quite sturdy, they're thick enough to provide that level of reassurance that this is a well-built and well-made keyboard, but small enough to not have the keyboard be unnecessarily high due to the tilted nature of them. It's just right. They're quite small, they're very sturdy, they flip away easily, no complaints from me. You might have spotted it already, or you might not have. There is a small OLED, what they call smart display at the top right of this keyboard. I'm going to be totally honest with you. When I first saw this and I first got to playing around with it, I was thinking, this is a bit of a gimmick. I mean, yes, it's cool to have a little display on your keyboard. That's fair enough. You can put the odd graphic here and there, but am I actually going to use this? Well, there are actually a lot of uses for it. And while I didn't explore this extensively, having just the name of a track on Spotify come up, or even just a status of a certain social media platform, the customization options are what bring this keyboard alive, both with the RGB and the macros as well as the display. And to be honest, the fact that you can get information straight from games and various apps such as Spotify, and put your own branding on there if you're going to use this keyboard in more of a business or commercial kind of place, like an internet cafe, for example. You could have a bunch of these keyboards with your internet cafe's branding on them, and it just gives it that edge, and it gives that sense of, wow, this keyboard's actually pretty cool. What was the name of it again? And then next to the OLED screen, there is the scroll wheel. The scroll wheel is not just a volume up and volume down, which is standard for what you're going to be using it for really. You can also use this to change between different menu settings within the keyboard settings. These can be navigated using the screen and the, I'm going to call it the volume wheel or the scroll wheel or whatever you want to call it yourself. You would use that scroll wheel, you'd press in, this then activates the menu, and then you can scroll the wheel up or down and then select when you're ready to go. You can choose between setting up different profiles of the keyboards, which will in turn change the type of macros that you have enabled. It will also change the RGB illumination. And also you can change things like how bright do we want this keyboard and control it directly from the interface of the keyboard rather than having to open up the SteelSeries Engine. Me personally though, I didn't really like navigating this menu. I appreciate the fact that it's there and it's very extensive and gives you all the options you would need, but as a personal preference I quite like booting up the software on the PC and having it on my bigger screen and just being able to navigate it that way. I understand people are going to have their own preferences, that's just mine. This keyboard is not the TKL version, this is the full-fledged keyboard with the number keys. Regardless of that fact, I think it looks great on any desk setup. I did use it on a few surfaces, the one that you see in this video as well as a kitchen surface, just to see how the colours would contrast. It looks fine on most surfaces. Obviously if you've got a surface or a room that's ultra bright and it never gets any kind of darkness, the RGBs won't show up as much. But in most scenarios where you're going to be using this keyboard, you're not going to have any issues. It's going to look great wherever you put it. Okay, so flip the keyboard over and you'll notice these grooves on the back. What this is used for is for you to run the cable down the back of the keyboard and either left, right or through the center, and it allows you to direct the cable so it comes out of the keyboard at a particular direction. I know some of you that are getting into keyboards and finding out what premium keyboards are all about might think this is a little bit over the top and not really necessary, it's just a luxury. Well, I can safely say this is one of my favourite parts of this keyboard, a very underrated feature. Just think about it, you can set the keyboard up and have the wire coming out of the left hand side. It just makes that little bit of a difference that goes a very long way when people go, wow, how'd you get your keyboard to look like that with the wire going that way? That's the secret, the grooves. Okay, so enough of me talking about what the keyboard looks like, this and that. Let's talk about the actual performance of this keyboard. The performance of this keyboard was extremely good. The game of choice I chose to test this with was actually Counter-Strike Source. I might be showing my age a little bit there and I might be showing the fact that I'm not completely with it when it comes to the latest and greatest games, but I thought that's a fair test for a fast-paced game which involves various strafing left and right, crouching, jumping, all that good stuff, and the typical reaction speed test that you would expect from somebody reviewing a gaming keyboard. This holds out. I spent a couple of hours at least in Counter-Strike Source just replaying all my favourite maps from when I used to be a bit more of a gamer than I am now. It was just really, really cool just to have that clicky-clacky from the blue switch keyboard. I'm not sure if I mentioned that, but this is definitely a blue switch version of this keyboard because it's very clicky-clacky. Jumping around, the very satisfying sounds of the switches, as well as the performance it gives you. My arm didn't move from the keyboard, I didn't feel any discomfort when using the keyboard. Typing away, moving left and right, in-game chat, my hands went back to the area that they were originally from the keyboard. I didn't have any confusion with which toggle's what. It was all clear and all very easy to use, and the performance was very, very good. Obviously, when you combine the keyboard with the wrist rest, the comfort goes up, the performance goes up because you're there thinking, great, so my arms are in a comfortable position, I can game at the optimum level. I know that sounds like kind of marketing spiel, but honestly, this keyboard was never going to fail a test like this. SteelSeries make genuinely good keyboards. Even on the lower end of the spectrum to the higher end of the spectrum, you're not going to find a keyboard from SteelSeries that lacks in terms of the functionality of it when it comes to using W, A, S and D, pressing various keys. The build quality will be fine, and there were not any issues for me. Take it from me, if you're worried about the performance of this keyboard, will it hold up in games left, right and centre? SteelSeries haven't built a brand as big as they are by giving you a keyboard that's going to perform subpar when gaming and other activities. Trust me. So let's go ahead and run the sound test so you can hear exactly how this keyboard responds and how loud it is on different types of key presses. This is light typing on the Apex 7. This is medium typing on the Apex 7. This is aggressive typing on the Apex 7. Individual key presses. Spacebar. Enter button. Escape. Back to individual key presses. Spacebar. Numlock. And there we have it. Just to give you an example of how close the microphone was to the keyboard. Keyboard there. Microphone right here. I'm just going to move back a bit. Literally right above it. As I briefly mentioned earlier, if you want to extend the functionality of this keyboard, if you want to have a look fully at the illumination options, the macros and everything else, think of it as the brain of the keyboard, it's definitely worth linking this up with the SteelSeries Engine. I'm going to leave a link in the description. I don't feel like I need to talk a whole lot about this because it's pretty universal across the SteelSeries line. The SteelSeries Engine really does unlock the full potential of this keyboard. Yes, you can take it out, plug it into your PC and control the illumination and things like that from the inbuilt menu. But as soon as you go to the SteelSeries Engine, you're going to realise that you're missing out on quite a lot if you stick to purely the keyboard menu. Give it a go. You can download it now before you even have this keyboard in your possession because you can try it with other SteelSeries products. And there's also going to be a link in the description that goes through in detail exactly what to expect from the engine itself. Overall, this keyboard is not supposed to be an entry-level keyboard. And those of you watching this video will probably already realise that. Whether it's the aircraft grade aluminium that it's made of, whether it's the blue switches, whether it's just the look and feel, there is a premium feel and look and feel to this keyboard that really, really does show itself again in the performance of the keyboard. So, as I said, I had no issues in games, very quick reaction times, very, very good responsiveness. When I pressed down, I immediately saw the feedback on the screen. And as I also said, when you're buying a SteelSeries product, you're also buying into the brand of SteelSeries that has also built itself over the years for consistently listening to consumers and providing them what they want. And as a result, we get to this keyboard, which is not perfect, but it's very, very close. Some of you might not like the menu system, some of you might not like the scroll wheel, some of you might not even like the form factor or the design. Again, those are things that you can't really control. You just either like it or you don't. Should you buy this keyboard? I don't see why not. The price might be a bit heavy for some. Also, it might be a bit overkill if you're just looking for that first gaming keyboard. However, seasoned gamers and those looking for quality, especially in terms of build quality, and coupled with the SteelSeries environment that you're bringing yourself into with the SteelSeries Engine, the illuminations, the macros and all of that jazz, and also the performance that it gives you with a SteelSeries product, I don't see why you wouldn't upgrade to this keyboard. With the added bonus of the pass-through USB, it's definitely worth considering. So check it out, let me know what you think in the comments below. Feel free to give me feedback on this review if you think I've missed certain things, or you think I shouldn't have mentioned that, or I should have mentioned this. That's what this whole YouTube thing is all about. I've been Adam from Ads Productions with the review of the SteelSeries Apex 7 RGB Blue Switch Mechanical Gaming Keyboard. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.